Hellcat.
Hello and welcome back to the channel where finally, at last, I am reviewing another Saturn game. Now I think it's been about 2 months since I reviewed my last one, and that's basically because my cable that I've been using started going a bit funny and the screen kept going green, and so I stopped using it. And then when I used it, I tried to use it the other day to record the intro for Pro Pinball the Web, and it worked fine. So I thought, well, why not? I'll try and record some footage, and lo and behold, it worked okay. So I thought, you know what, we will review one of my favorite games on the Saturn, Athlete Kings. This game is a fantastic button mashing athletics arcade style game. So without further ado, let's go and review Athlete Kings. Okay, so here we are loading up Athlete Kings, one of my all-time favorite Sega Saturn games. Find it very hard to talk badly about this game. I played International Track and Field before I played this, but then after playing Athlete Kings, it just slaughters it pretty much in every way possible. So for those of you who don't know, Athlete Kings was released in 1996. In the other parts of the world it was called Decathlete, but there was some kind of licensing trouble with that name, which meant over here in Europe it was renamed Athlete Kings. And if you don't know what a decathlon is, basically it's a series of 10 events spread over a couple of days where you get points for each event based on how well you perform, and a total score being given to you at the end to determine who the winners are. So loading up onto main menu, we've got decathlete mode, we've got arcade mode, we've got practice mode, we've got settings. Flicking through the settings, you can look at the Hall of Fame, which will show you the records, world records for all the events. You can come back on D-pad configuration, sound test, simplistic game settings as well. Nothing really exciting in the options. So basically the main bulk of the game is decathlon mode or arcade mode. Arcade mode forces you to meet certain criteria in terms of your times and scores to progress, whereas decathlon mode means you just do the 10 events. And going on to characters, we've got Rick Blade, the all-around American, Carl Vane, a jumping specialist from Germany. We've got Jeff Janssens, a throwing specialist representing Great Britain. We've got Alexei Rigel, a throwing specialist representing Russia. Joe Kudoy, an all-around athlete from Japan. We've got Femi Kadiena, a jumper from Jamaica. We've got Ellen Reggiani, a runner from France. And the youngster, 15-year-old Liu Huang, a runner from China. So, of course, I had to pick Rick Blade, the all-around, all-American, sort of like your main character hero. So we go on to our first event, the 100-meter dash. There are 10 different events across the game: 100 meters dash, 400 meters long jump, shot put, discus, javelin, high jump, pole vault, 1500 meters, and the 110-meter hurdles. They're all pretty simplistic games. The running events revolve around button bashing. Some of them, like the 100 meters and the 110-meter hurdles, are as fast as possible, whereas the 400 meters and the 1500-meter race require you to be more steady in the way that you do it, otherwise your stamina will burn out. The field events are a little bit different. They usually involve, such as the javelin or the high jump, building up speed before using the action button to determine your angle and then how far you throw the item or jump, those sort of things. So the game isn't overly complex, but that's probably one of the reasons why it makes it so appealing, if I'm honest. The way it plays, it's straightforward, it's simple, but it's fun. It's just a tremendous fun game. Anyway, talking about the game in general is done. We need to break it down like we always do into graphics, gameplay, sounds, and lifespan. If you've never played this game before, one of the first things you'll notice when you play it is that the graphics are razor sharp and crisp on the characters, and that's because it's one of the few games that runs in the Saturn's high resolution mode. So even to this day, when you play the game and you see the character models, certainly in my opinion, they still look very good. The character models on this game are probably, I'm not going to say definitely, but probably the best ones on the Saturn. If I'm honest, they still look crisp, sharp, really detailed, and the way that each character looks as well gives them, you can tell they've got a personality to their characters. Rick Blade looks like that straight edge, all around, you know, all American kind of person, whereas Jeff Jansen's looks like a bit of a joker. Carl Vane probably is vain by the way he looks, and when you hear him speak and stuff, he thinks quite a lot of his own abilities, and that's one of the reasons which makes the game still playable today, is the fact that it doesn't rely on being serious, having specific athletes from that era. Even though the game's 25 years old, it's irrelevant because the characters are all unique and original, and the events, they're all still the same. They still do them the same to this day, so that's what makes the game still appealing. Again, visually, I can't fault the character models. The arenas, they're not, you know, they're not bad. There's not a whole lot going on there, but they still look fairly good. I think they still stand the test of time pretty well. One thing I could say graphically, or perhaps performance-wise, there's only two, on the running events anyway, there are only two real characters. So in the 100 meters and the 110 meters hurdles, it's just you and one CPU character. It's not a full track full of athletes. When you get to the 1500 meter race, there are some generic CPU characters put in the race to fill it, I think, to make it a little less boring almost, because just running around the track for 3.5 laps or whatever it is probably a little dull with only two characters. But again, visually, I can't really fault the game. So talking about the way everything sounds, again, not really much to complain about here as well. All the characters have their own unique voice, and they've got their particular phrases that they say when they don't do particularly well or when they've done really well, so on and so forth. The sounds during the events, yeah, can't really fault them, to be honest. There's not a whole lot of sounds and music in the game. You get your tunes when you break a world record and when you've got to the end of the day's events and stuff like that, but there isn't an overly high amount of music or sound effects in the game. But what is here, I don't really think you can fault. Talking about the way the game plays, obviously I mentioned it a bit earlier on, and that's one of the reasons why it's still playable today, is the simplistic but pretty addictive gameplay. You know, it's a button mashing athletics game in some regards, and then you've got other events which, like the shot put, require you to have more timing. And the fact that it's so simple means it's a great multiplayer game as well, because you don't have to be a highly skilled gamer to give it a go. Literally, you're doing the 100 meters, you're bashing the two buttons alternatively as fast as you can, and then dipping your head with the action button at the finish line. Same with the 110 meter hurdles, bashing as fast as you can using the action button to jump over the hurdles. Probably the most difficult event to play is the Discus. If you've got a D-pad, sometimes because you've got to rotate the D-pad for that one as fast as possible to build up power, can be quite tricky. Now, I'm lucky I've got one of the Virtua sticks, so you can rotate that much better and you can get more power on that, so it's definitely easier to play the Discus with. I don't really think there's any bad events. The 1500 meters is definitely the least enjoyable, because it's about 3 or 4 minutes long, that race, and you're just continually trying to rest, then build up speed, and it can be quite tricky to win the 1500 meters. I mean, I think I've ended last in the 1500 meter race before and set a new world record, so it tells you about the CPU is a little bit unrealistic on that one. But apart from that, I couldn't really fault any of the other events whatsoever, and in terms of the way they play, I just genuinely can't say anything bad about the game, if I'm honest. Lifespan then. Lifespan. One of the most important things for any game is, does it keep you coming back for more? Thankfully, unlike some of those pinball games I've looked at in the past where you can't save any data, thankfully you can save all your high scores on Athlete Kings, which means that desire to have one crack, another crack here and there, beating your world records is always there, and it's appealing. It doesn't matter if the game's 25 years old, it's just as playable now as it was then. The characters are just as appealing, just as cheesy, and that means it just stands the test of time. It really does, and if you've got people to play it with as well, then you can compete against each other still. It really can't be faulted for its lifespan at all, you know. I will still play it when I played through the whole entire decathlon mode, just recording footage for this, and sat there for 20 minutes, played it, enjoyed it. Doesn't feel like you've wasted your time. I think I broke 3 or 4 world records as well. You know, just by having a playthrough to look at it for the review, and I just think it's a genuinely brilliant game. Even though it only takes 20 minutes to play through it, it's one of these games where you can have a go, come back a few minutes later, have another go. It's not one of these games that you put on the shelf and stays there for eternity once you've played it once. It stands the test of time and it remains appealing. If I've got to summarise the game overall, I'd have to say that it is possibly the very best arcade game on the console. It's the best sports game on the console, that's a fact. I don't think anybody can argue with that. And it is right up there with the very best arcade games on the console. I don't think anybody can really argue with that. Even if you're not an athletics fan or a sports fan, it's the way it plays. And I think it means it's ranked so highly. I can't say it's one of the very best overall games on the Saturn, because it's hard to compare something like this with Grandeur or Shining Force 3. Those kind of games, I don't think you can really compare them to an arcade game. But in terms of arcade games, it is right up there as one of the very best on the console ever. Well, there we have it. That was Athlete Kings on the Saturn. This game is only £8 at CEX, so it is one that everybody should pretty much have in their collection. You've got no real excuse. It's such a great game. I just really can't say anything bad about it. That is it for this time. Give it a like down below. If you like Athlete Kings, if you've got any memories of Athlete Kings, or if you still play it to this day, leave me a comment down below. And as always, I will see you next time for my next Saturn review. Goodbye for now.